Hello and welcome back to Star Citizen, where this time we're going to be talking about the Sabre a little bit, as I alluded to during the recent Aegis Expo. That I wanted to get my hand on the ship for quite a while to just try it out, and I did that the past day, and I think I have I think I have some opinions on that ship now. So let's get right into that. Anyway, if we take a look outside, it's a beautiful ship, very iconic looking, just kind of swept delta wing look, pretty nice. It also has very, very interesting stats for being a fighter craft, and those stats are basically the reason for why it has often been touted as one of the best dogfighters, with a small face where the Arrow was the king of dogfighting recently. It pretty much has held up a position at the top or very close to the top ever since that ship managed to make it into the game. So there's very specific reasons for that. One is it has quite a few weapons for a fighter craft.
Weapon systems.
It has space for 3 fixed guns. By default, there are 3 fixed size, four fixed size 3 laser repeaters on there, which are in 2 different groups, which is gonna bother me a bit. Let's try and correct that real quick, because I see no reason to have them on different weapon groups. Never mind that. Enemies? No enemies? Oh, come on. Enemies. Alright.
Contact.
Of course our target isn't a caterpillar, which is one of the few ships that the default loadout cannot kill. Thank you. Let's just blow up that Valkyrie over there and let's just get out of here, I guess.
Head shield under fire. Shields up.
And just die. Thank you. Well, see you later, fellas. And I think I had a second mission too, though, which hopefully doesn't have a hammerhead to make up for that one here. Anyway, the weapons are pretty powerful, as you can see. As you just seen, the Valkyrie was down pretty quickly. However, it's still not enough firepower to be able to deal with size 3 shields, just, because how awesome size 3 shields are. I think the planet might be closer. Let's try it. So, the default laser repeaters are not good enough for that. Obviously, you can change it, if you just want to do the missions here. I would recommend the loadout of something ballistic, just having Gatlings, for instance, is more than capable of still dealing with fighter craft if you time your shots properly. And you can still kill, the caterpillars. It's probably going to take a while to kill the hammerheads, but you should still be able to do it. And then you can just take it from there. Obviously, just regular ballistic cannons will also work, but it will make dealing with fighters a lot more annoying, just because of how slow they fire and the low projectile speed that they have. So I really wouldn't recommend it. In that case, I would just leave fighters be or throw a missile at them. The ship comes equipped by default with, I think, 4 size 3 missiles. Yes, 4 size 3 missiles. If you want, you could just exchange it for 8 size 2 missiles, which is probably the better choice. But a single size 3 missile is capable of just taking out a Buccaneer by itself. So you can just fire and forget, basically. So the guns are pretty good. However, due to how the gun loadout works, if you want to go for a gimbal loadout, you have to sacrifice quite a bit of firepower, because you basically have to install regular gimbal attachments on all weapon mounts, which means then you'll end up with 4 size 2 gimbal, which is still pretty good for fighter craft, no doubt about that. But you're not the best at that point anymore, and also you're not that much better as what an Arrow can do, or even what a Mustang can do, because those can also get to 2 size 2, 2 size 1s, which is, almost as good as 4 size 2s. So I think you end up losing a lot if you go for a gimbal loadout on the ship, so I really wouldn't recommend it. If you prefer fighting with a gimbal loadout, there's different fighter craft that are probably better suited to your fighting style. And also there's the Freelancer, you know, which has gimbal by default with exactly the same amount of armament, so you could also just go for that instead, which is a lot cheaper too. So there's also that. One other thing this ship is going for, it is the components that it has. It's equipped by default with 2 power generators, which is, I think, is the only fighter craft available in the game that has 2 power generators. And it's also equipped with 3 size 1 shields, which by default are stealth shields, and stealth shields I think are one of the more interesting shields in the game at the moment. Let me say why real quick. I'm just a little bit irritated because it's so dark that I think that's all a big asteroid and don't want to run into it. So let me just plot a course here that doesn't get me killed. Basically, when discussing shields in Star Citizen, most people just think about a shield in terms of how much shield strength does it have, so how much damage can it dissipate, and how quickly does it regenerate that shield strength. However, there are 3 more properties that are very, very important for a shield that most people just tend to overlook. One is a shield also requires power, and there's huge differences between several shields with regards to how much power they need in order to, you know, function and regenerate. Stealth shields are among the more power-friendly shields, so if you have issues with your ship just needing more power, then you could always just debate if you wanna just change your shields for stealth shields, because they don't use much power, which doesn't really make much sense, especially since the Sabre here has enough power to maintain better shields. But it makes sense in that way that because they use not much power, you have less signature from the shield itself and less signature from the power plant, because the power plant doesn't have to be working all too much. So it kind of ends up making sense in that matter. Now I don't get an enemy at all. What's up with the spawner today? Oh, Star Citizen. Oh, those are just regular people. Oh, great. Well, so much about targets. Apologies, but you can't always plan for those things. Normally, if you have 2 missions, you know, there should at least be 1 that you can deal with, and that spawns. But sometimes it just doesn't. Alright. Well, that's pretty close. And someone already took it. God dang it. Alright, let's go to that one. Back to shields. I was talking about the 3 properties that most people just overlook. Power is 1. And then there's 2 more, and those 2 are what's known as delays. More specifically, there's a damage delay, which basically means how long the shield will wait until it starts regenerating if the shield has been hit. So if you've seen in the previous fight, we got a few hits in from that Valkyrie, but the stealth shields have a damage delay of exactly 0, so they immediately start regenerating. Which is pretty good, you know, because most shields have something in the range of a few seconds. So let's say, I don't know, 4 seconds. So that means for 4 seconds, just nothing happens. So while stealth shields at this point probably have already repaired the damage if it was just a minor hit. So that's pretty great about them too. And then there's also a downed delay, which basically means if one of the shield faces is entirely down, how long it will take for it to start regenerating again, which is in pretty much all cases longer than the damage delay, and for stealth shields in particular it's a lot longer than the damage delay, so it's somewhere closer to, I think, 15 to 20 seconds, depends on the exact shield that you used. So they do have a downside, obviously, which is if one of the shield is entirely down, you should probably, you know, be on your way out, or just concentrate very heavily on evading any more fire coming in. But they have pretty high regeneration capabilities. And yes, they don't have the best shield strength, but since they don't have a damage delay, whenever you get damage in, they pretty much immediately start regenerating it. So I think stealth shields are pretty great. Maybe you don't need to have exclusively stealth shields. You know, the default loadout of the ship comes with 3 stealth shields equipped by default, which kind of alleviates the main weakness of not having that much shield power by just having 3 of them instead of 2 or 1. But with the high regeneration, if every time we get hit, if you just take a look at it, I'm trying to get hit by that Andromeda, but it doesn't really seem to want me to get hit. As you can see, I just took a hit to the front shield down to somewhere around 80%, and within seconds it was just totally back up to 100, which kind of shows you the power of these shields. That you really, in order to go through them with energy weapons, you need a lot of very consistent hits. Still a Caterpillar, and well, let's also check out a Valkyrie real quick. So that's pretty great too. So what kind of weaknesses does this ship have by default? Well, I think it's very fair to notice that compared to the base version of the Hornet, which yes is still quite a bit cheaper, but also a dedicated military craft, it can actually be used for combat right from the get-go. It won't be able to deal with anything because it won't be able to deal with everything because, you know, some ships just have 2 powerful shields and you probably need some ballistic source of damage in order to deal with them, or bring a friend or something. Because if we just try and engage that Caterpillar over there, you'll see it's still not quite enough firepower that we have here. So let's try and shoot it in the back. I should not get hit myself too much. Because apparently they have some way of piercing through the shield. Because it wasn't entirely down, I think. But as you can see here, still not quite enough damage. The size 3 shields pretty much all have no damage delay, so even if you keep up consistent fire on one of the faces, you will not be able to just take it down like you would be with a fightercraft shield, just because it has no region delay. Yeah, as you can see, we're not getting anywhere here. We would need different armament in order to deal with that. But with different armament, I have been able to take out Caterpillars. I haven't run into Hammerheads, but I think it should also be able to deal with those. So, yeah, ship's pretty great. There's really, if you're looking for a pure combat ship, there's really nothing wrong with it. Although you probably want to use it with a fixed configuration, because the gimbal does sacrifice quite a bit of firepower. And again, is it really worth it to you to invest so much money into just having a slight improvement on some other fighter craft? I don't know. It's a choice you have to make, I guess. But it's pretty fine, you know? It's also pretty stealthy. Just the base default loadout is pretty stealthy in it by itself. Especially if you switch the weapons off. I think we have... well, we still have quite a bit of signature from the weapons, even though they're switched off.
Weapon systems online.
Well, it doesn't seem to matter too much. Huh. Well, it's still pretty low, and if you go for some more stealthy weapons, I think Gatling guns are particularly good because they don't really use much power, so your power plant doesn't generate much signature, and the weapons themselves also don't. You got a pretty neat fighter that can just pick its targets. It's also pretty fast, though, you know, I think it was 1235 or something. It's pretty fast, though there are a few ships that are faster than it, but you can also probably use it as an interceptor rather well. So, it's good. It's really good. Is it worth the price? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.